making some parts here to keep these dinosaurs alive, it looks like, huh?
Yeah, trying
Awesome.
to.
Okay.
We started kind of branching out with some of our 3D printing stuff.
Okay.
It's one of the things I kind of wanted to put some emphasis on today was kind of the shifter assembly, because it was something that we're starting to do more often for a wider variety of some of the cars around here.
So right now, do you have it both for the 1G and the 2G?
We do.
Okay.
The 2G is a little bit different. Actually, each one of them is different. And as Mitsubishi started producing some of these, they had really nice tolerances in the beginning. And one of our challenges was the 90 shifters had really good tolerances from shifter to shifter. But as we progressed from the first generation to the second generation, you could tell they were pumping out more of these. So the tolerances started to vary quite a bit more. And when trying to create a nice feel in a factory shifter without getting it to, you put in a new bushing and you still have a little bit of slop in there, that was kind of the challenge.
Okay.
So we do offer for the second generation, and that was something we were looking forward to doing, especially because those are really thin bushing, so it was a little bit more difficult with the 3D printing, but we do offer it for both. This one here today is my personal favorite, which is the 91 to 94 shifter.
Okay.
I personally own a 1G dog box car, and this is what got us started on it. It's a 90, but the 90 had a longer throw, and the bushings themselves were quite expensive. For getting one bushing, you're looking at 10 to 12 bucks for just a bushing. And then to deck this thing out, you've got 5-6 bushings, which, I mean, it adds up in the end to 60, 70 bucks. So I switched over to this because the last thing I wanted to do was money shift a 5-figure transmission on accident. So this is what got us started. Ryan, he's been wanting to get into 3D printing for a long time.
Okay.
I've been needing parts for a long time because I break so many. It's just inevitable, and I think as we all kind of start out, we need something. So if you can't find it, you got to make it somehow.
Right.
And since I started doing some tuning locally, we had some local cars who found interest in this, and we decided, you know what? If we can make this for the community and make this not just a custom application for my car, but something that everybody can use, why not?
So explain to me this, are they just buying new bushings for me, or are they sending you a whole assembly, you're going through and detailing it all out, getting it back to them so they can bolt it in the car?
So that is actually something we hadn't come out with until the Shootout here, because we've got a few shifter assemblies now. But with everyone starting to gut their cars, a lot of times people want things looking a little bit nicer. So we are now offering that as a service. So we'll take them in, we'll put in our base bushings, which are press fit bushing versus, you can use an aluminum bushing. The problem sometimes becomes is they're not a press fit and they don't stay. So if you're trying to put it in your car, sometimes just getting it to fit is a little bit of a challenge. But this was just something we made to use and tried to see if it would work. The biggest addition that I was looking forward to was the stopper on these. So we moved, instead of a rubber stopper, we made it a solid ABS stopper, which everyone's knowing now, the shift forks and transmissions of these cars are just kind of, they're becoming gold if you have some. So we made the solid ones, and I wanted for my car a solid feel so I know when it was in each gear, and it also helped when I was in that gear, I knew it was positively in gear, because when I'm in that, especially in the dog box, if it comes out a little bit, that's all it takes and it rounds off those dogs. So that was something we did there, and we made a little bit tighter tolerances than the OEM spec, and that was something different too with these 91 to 94 shifter assemblies. Is the OEM assemblies call for the same size bushings down at the appendage here, the linkage here, and then up top. But what we found, we try and take in as much assemblies as we can, but we found that this top piece actually uses a slightly different bushing size, so it's a little bit tighter. So we make these top two bushings a little bit larger to account for the slight bit of slop that usually comes when you put all new Mitsu bushings in here. So that was one of our things with the 1G setup that we were really looking forward to and really proud of. And then with the 91 or the 90 assembly. So this is a triangular stopper on here, so when it comes forward and back, it's got a flat point where it stops, and we can actually pass this around if you want to check it out. The 90 has a circular stopper, and most of the time, that's also rubber. It comes factory rubber, and we make it in ABS, but a lot of times they become really brittle and they just break off, and the 90 ones you can't find anymore. So to get one of those, that was something we made initially for his car because he ran the 90 assembly. Because if you don't have that, you're going to overthrow that fork, and that's just going to end up with broken forks, which seems to be all that more common nowadays. So we started with PLA, which is a very simple, very basic printing process. It can't hold up to a lot of heat, and it's not as strong. And I put PLA in mine, and I slammed the gears as hard as I can to see if I can break the PLA. It did well, but then we wanted to move up in just UV resistance and strength and just the quality of the material. So we use a special blend of ABS to make sure it prints well and adheres well to itself, so that way it's all solid. But that's some of the shifter assembly stuff we've been working on. And we've kind of branched out just to parts in general that are no longer made or people are looking for customized. So you can see we've got different types. This is just an OEM cap for the Talons, and we're looking into the Evos because that's become a common question we've been getting, is if we can do them if they fit the factory Evo wheels, and they've got a slightly different diameter. And I think Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've got first one printing out right now to see if it'll fit in one of the local guys' cars out there.
Correct, yep.
So
he had a set of rims, and so we decided we're going to take some measurements.
Now, are these two different materials here? Is that why they look different, or is
it's actually, so we do a little post-processing in these, because I personally didn't like, so Ryan brought me parts and pieces, but I didn't like the layer lines that you see in this, and he's kind of the mastermind that started it all, and we're both still learning, but it's nice that we can feed off each other for a lot of this. But we take it and we can smooth it out and get it so where the layer lines are less visible, because when you get it, sometimes depending on how you print, if you print it too hot or too close to the bed, you can get it'll mush, or you'll have gaps, and you just won't have a very smooth finish. And when you have it on the surface like this, one of our wing delete kits, or just some of the screw caps on the side of the wings, you want that to look good. You don't want it to be full of layer lines. So this is just 3 different stages that we go through. You can paint the ones that we go through to match the OEM wheels. And so that way it looks nice. I've got a set of these on my car, and actually most of the stuff we make it for our own cars, and we just offer it to the community. So unfortunately we struggle a little bit now putting more products into the second generation world, because we've only
you don't own one right now, right?
yeah, exactly. I've only owned 1 or 2, but we like to be able to test multiple different cars, so we would like to see 5, 10 different vehicles and make sure this fits on every single one of them before we start offering it to everybody, because you don't know what kind of variances. And when you're talking 10,000ths of an inch for like something of a shifter bushing, you really want that to be tight and fit well. Another thing, going back to the shifter assemblies, with those, a lot of people have asked, why don't you use a metal collar or a brass collar? And I thought of that initially, using that. We looked into it, but after we started looking at the variances and tolerances between them, you can make a really nice custom bushing, albeit a little bit more expensive, but you can make a nice custom bushing and it fits really well. The problem becomes with the variances between shifter assemblies, especially in the later years, you start to get either too tight or too loose of a tolerance where it might have worked for your last couple assemblies, but now it's too loose or too tight, and you send it out and you don't know what to do with it.
Good timing. There we go. Thank you. So cost-wise, if somebody do you offer that whole shifter assembly, completely done up as an exchange, or?
Yeah.
And what would that run somebody?
So we're testing it now. We had a couple not powder coated ones, and they went really quickly at 175 a pop. So we're powder coating them now, putting them with all our bushings in them and going through them. We started adding hardware to them and making sure that the spring tension on that spring still brings it back to the center, because that's also kind of something that we've been trying to figure out, as figuring that they come back to center, because some of those springs after this long a time, they just don't bring it back to center.
Gotcha.
We've been buying them in at 45 bucks a pop, or that's, if you send one in, we'll take that off the price, and right now we have them at 220 just to see where we're at.
Okay.
And
Now,
it's
what about
worked well.
on the end of the cables? It has that bushing in there.
Yep.
Do you guys offer a replacement for that, or a recommendation for that, or what are you doing on that end of it?
We do. However, there are plenty of options out there that work really well for it, and that leads me into another topic, which is the heat resistance. And when we first started with PLA, it would start to melt in the engine bay, and so we switched over to the ABS
right.
to keep from melting. And we've tested them, and they work really well. I have a set in the shifter cables, on the bushings itself. There's also the bushing that goes in the shift lever on the shifter, which it's just a little square button, which you can still get new from Mitsu. We made some slight changes just to make it a little more taut. Basically, so everything you have from that linkage back is a tight feel. So
Gotcha.
even though the transmission isn't mounted right under your shifter,
Right, and you've got a cable, and you've got this, all that in there, stiffening all this up and getting all the slop out of it.
Exactly.
You got a positive feel still.
Yep, and that was where we wanted to get as close as we could to a positive, almost like a transmission underneath the car feel. So that was something we were looking at there, and so far it's been pretty decent as far as.
Gotcha. Are you open for input from the community? I mean, have you had people in the community? Well, number one, hopefully after the events, if more people know that what you can do and what you want to do, are you open to have people say, hey, can you guys make these things? I can't find these anymore, and there's a lot of people that need this.
Yes.
Are you looking for that right
yes,
now?
we're definitely. There's always stuff that we're looking to improve on and make. The problem is, for us, we don't have a scanner, so all of our stuff we sit down and hand make, and we print and test, and we try and get it as close to factory resemblance and fit as possible. So we do have suggestions right now, and actually there were quite a few suggestions and repeatable ones as well, of just parts and pieces where guys, once you take it off, they either don't have a factory part number, or they can no longer get it because it just breaks off, and you're pretty well, you're looking for a good car to find the parts and pieces off of. Like, for example, we make the wing mount clips.
Okay.
So when you have the wings on a lot of these cars, I'm sure somebody's seen some of the videos where the wing just goes woof, and that's it. That's all you got. Mine was about to do that, and it always rattled, and I was like, it's just supposed to do that. He came up to me one day, he's like, it's an old car, it's 1990. He came up to me, he's like, try these. I'm like, what are these for? We made them out of stainless so they won't rust, because it's two M6 bolts that run up into a nut that holds the wing onto there, and a lot of times the plastic will degrade and it'll break, and then when you're trying to get it out, the nut and bolt fuse themselves together, so you sit there and it just keeps spinning. And so once you try and find those parts, it's difficult to find them, and so we made those along with the sliding clips that are used on the wing itself. So that way you put it there, it slides right on, and then we use a 3M padding on those so it doesn't scratch the paint, and if it does tend to get loose, it's not going to rattle, it stays really solid.
Yeah.
So
very cool.
That was some of the stuff we got into, and making it watertight was another kind of a special thing that we wanted to get into. So getting all the delete kits, so like you take your antenna out, your rear wiper, stuff like that, you can put a plug in there, or you can find a Home Depot plug if you're really trying to skip by. But I wanted something that looked a little nicer and would seal well. So we embedded O-rings in some of our products. That way, when they snap in, it seals, and you're not going to have any issues with water getting into them. So,
very cool. Very cool.
and actually, if you want to see some of these, these are just different options as far as kind of stages, as you will. You can see the very rough print one, and then as you look at them there. So,
Any questions?
Windshield wiper delete for the rear. Did you say you have those?
yeah.
Okay.
So we have them for the 1GA, and that, I mean, it's a two-piece setup. So we've got the inside, which goes through the trunklet itself, and then the top for the wing. We have a few sets here. And the one inside the wing is the one with the bezel and the O-ring in it to keep it sealed, and then the actual piece top that looks nice is, it's just a separate piece that clips it, just like the factory one does.
And that's made out of the ABS or the PLA?
Yes,
So
we switched entirely over to PLA now, or to ABS. My
Gotcha.
bad.
So ABS, you got to be careful for anybody at home trying to do that. You're not supposed to do that one indoors, right? You're supposed to have good ventilation and stuff with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's we make sure that, I mean, we have a room specifically dedicated to it, and it's really nice and toasty in there because you have to get the bed, all the temperatures just right so everything adheres. So you're sitting in the house and you walk in the room and it's just a blast of heat to your face, but it's all to keep the adhesion well,
Right.
to make sure it prints smoothly and get everything
Yeah.
Working together.
It's a challenge. I mean, even if you have your own 3D printer, to get the stuff
Goodness
to come out right,
gracious. Yeah.
there's so many things that can go wrong.
Trust me, there have been plenty of times where we walk away from a day print and we come back and some sort of hiccup comes in,
Yeah.
and all you got is just filament everywhere, and you're like, well, that goes back to the
Yeah,
drawing
yeah.
board. So, and there's been plenty of that where it's just trial and error, and so it's an entirely new thing for us, and to be able to give it to the community was one
That's
of the things
cool.
that
That's
we were
cool.
happy to be a part of. So.
Very cool. Oh, was there another question here?
Yeah, so how do people find your, do you have a website? How are people placing orders?
So we have a website, DSM3dcreations.com, and it has everything through that, so you can pay. Usually our stuff is through PayPal, credit card. So we've been trying to work on getting other ways to pay, other than we started out with just cash and debit cards, and now we can start to expand to other places that'll help us pay for certain things. So we do that. We do take a lot of people who look for custom parts and pieces. They can let us know on Facebook. Ryan Laker, Mackenzie Lang. I mean, we've got DSMs in our profile with our face on it, which is, I mean, yeah. So if people need to get a hold of us, they definitely have and definitely can. So if there's custom things that people need, feel free for anybody to shout out and say, hey, I need some of these, can you help me out? And what helps us out even more in that instance is a lot of times the parts that everyone needs, nobody has and nobody can get. So that's kind of another challenge we run into is you want to find a clean, mint condition version of that piece to either replicate or improve upon.
Right.
So sometimes that becomes the next kind of challenge that we run into. Which honestly, it's kind of fun to be able to see how many people need what sort of things you'd never think of needing, but then somebody comes through and says, hey, I've actually got one of those trim molding pieces that you need and nobody can find it. You're like, oh my gosh, you're the best, come here. That'd be awesome. So it's nice, and it's nice too, especially in the DSM community, everyone's, I've found that everyone's willing to help each other. You can walk up to any of these guys out here and say, hey, do you guys have some of this stuff? And they're more than willing to help, and that's something that we both enjoy about just the DSM community itself. So
very cool, very cool. Right now, okay. With your current setup that you have, is there any limitations on the length or width of the part or anything like that that you're kind of limited to? Because I know it depends on how big that bed is that you have to print on.
Yeah.
What's kind of the scope of the stuff that you're able to do right now?
So we actually brought one of our smaller printers along just to show people kind of how small the printers are huge, but they're encased,
Right.
so it helps keep the enclosure in. However, we find that the bed size becomes smaller. So we have a larger printer at home, which is 14 and a half long, was it 8 inches deep and 8 inches high?
11, 14 by 11.
14 by 11 by 8
Okay.
high. So you can actually
Pretty
make
nice size part.
pretty nice
Yeah.
size. Yeah, and usually I think our limit is about gauge cluster size. So
Oh, okay.
something that we're kind of looking into is for aftermarket applications is a lot of people are going to standalones now. I made a custom factory dash for my car, which put the IQ3 right in the center of my dash. So something we're looking into now is just being able to make that and bolt it in as an application. We also started with the Haltech Elite ECUs. We made the brackets so you could put it in the factory location, and so
Nice.
that way you're not running around with it. I mean,
Right.
granted, a lot of these guys are running race cars, but
yeah.
we're getting to the point now where people are driving dog boxes and standalone ECUs in the street. So being
Yeah.
able to support that and be able to use a glove box for something other than your engine control unit
Right.
is pretty important, at least as we see it. So,
Yeah, definitely. That's cool. That's fine stuff.
yeah.
Right on.
So
Perfect. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got a question. So if I were to buy one of your products, and I don't know how to install it, do you guys offer any instructions for that, or any videos or anything?
yes, actually on our website, we actually have install videos on some of our newer products. Actually, quite a few products. So we have a little YouTube channel. Nothing crazy. I think it's under DSM 3D Creations.
Okay.
So, but on our website, we actually categorize it on what it is and what it fits. So if there are questions, we do get a lot of questions on, hey, we got a wing delete kit and it doesn't fit here. How does this go in? And we just try and make the videos to make it simpler for people,
Right.
because sometimes you get a piece and you're looking at it like, this is 5 tabs in an oblong shape, and
Right,
I'm not
right.
sure what to do with this. So yes, that is something we offer, and it's just on the website. So,
Perfect. Cool deal.
Can we add a 1989 Mirage dash bezel
Yeah, what-
installation and removal video?
Yeah, what about that? I mean, what about the other Mitsubishis out there? What about the Mirages, the Starions? What about the Evos and stuff?
Yeah,
The
so-
newer stuff too.
Locally, I bring in a lot of cars and work on them. So we're trying to expand what we have, so we have them for a certain amount of time.
Right.
We've got an Evo at the shop and a Summit. So we've got those currently and working on products for those. A Mirage, I'd like to find one locally. If we can make parts for something,
I know of one.
yeah.
Drop perfect.
Yeah, if we can get measurements, I know
Drove up from Texas.
we've got a Chariot coming in that needs some replacement radiator bushings that we're going to be printing on later today. So it's just going to be a matter of seeing the car, making sure that everything measures up. And we brought our stuff too today and this weekend, that if somebody does need something, it's something we can put on the printer we have out there. We'll do it out here. So
Cool.
just stop by and we'll take a look at it. So thanks.
Cool. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it. Nice meeting you. Thanks for